Welcome everyone, and thank you for watching IMIX Group's led webinar on the law enforcement and public safety market. Let me introduce myself. My name is Rachel Eckert. I'm a consultant with IMIX Group's market intelligence team, exclusively focused on the state, local, and education, otherwise known as SLED markets. I'm responsible for fostering knowledge of SLED initiatives and opportunities across the technology spectrum to aid IMIX Group's client sales organizations win business. I received a BA International Business from Western Washington University in Bellingham, Washington. For the second straight year, violent crime has risen, up 4.1% in 2016 from 2015. And while property crime has dropped, the increase in murders and aggravated assaults have done little but place increased stress on law enforcement bodies. When you combine that with the increase in confrontations and high-profile police shootings, you have a perfect storm. It is this increasing pressure that's driving a need to find alternative solutions. The old methods of policing are no longer sufficient. To upgrade their methods and make police more responsive to their current environment, organizations have been and will continue to update and draft new regulations that aim to improve transparency and accountability while simultaneously protecting their officers. Not an easy task. These updates affect everything from training to patrol operations, and this will consume the time of many law enforcement organizations, especially those affected by high-profile incidents. Upgrading the regulations and training practices is just one method that they can leverage to ensure that past incidents don't repeat themselves. These regulations will have an impact on the types of technology procured and restrictions placed on those technology tools. New tools will need to make sure they fit within the organization's training and operations guidelines. Law enforcement organizations can no longer operate in a vacuum. They need to work together to improve a sense of community. Improving the sense of community fosters collaboration and respect with the community, which is key to reducing overall crime. One of the ways in which many organizations are breaking down those silos is through regional information sharing and collaboration. Multiple jurisdictions coming together physically under one roof to share data and resources to improve response. Now, for example, rather than the Los Angeles Police Department operating separately from the other county and area police and sheriff's departments, they come together to mutually share information and data to reach a common goal of reduced crime. Moving forward does have its roadblocks, however. Never far from any state and local discussion is a lack of resources. In this case, resources refers to both personnel and funding, and there's just never enough of either. Organizations will need to find alternative methods of financing upgrades to technology, equipment, and resources. Without finding those alternatives, they will be unable to continue the progress improving that sense of community. Upgrades to technology provide the force multiplier necessary to continue that progress. And even though many law enforcement and public safety entities would love to hire more officers to increase patrols, there are simply not funds to do this. And this is where technology comes in, increasing their reach without stretching their budget. And as we'll explore later, technology can help increase their eyes and ears, make sense of their data, and become more proactive. All of this comes with a balancing act. Considering several high-profile negative incidents with law enforcement over the past several years, organizations have a challenge in balancing their accountability and integrity with the public while making sure they're continuing to perform. They will need to make sure they're justifying the upgrades and spending in the court of public opinion. New methods and technology will need to produce quick wins if they hope to stay alive. To put some perspective in here, there are nearly 18,000 law enforcement entities nationwide. Each of those entities operates nearly independently. 18,000 entities operating independently creates a tangled network and nearly endless needs and requirements. If you narrow in on the bar chart here, you'll notice that the dominant share of those entities are local police and sheriffs, which means even more disparity between organizations because of the varying culture seen in even neighboring cities. What this means for you is that you'll need to prioritize your targets. It's not possible to go after each of the over 12,000 local police organizations. So you should focus on those organizations with the largest budgets and population. Start with those that sit in major metro areas and big cities. Now, the reason I say to target those first is that those in major metro areas and big cities are going to be the most likely organizations hampered by rising crime rates and in search of alternatives. And if you need another reason to target your efforts locally first, you'll notice that over 2/3 of the nearly $238 billion in spending by law enforcement is done at the local level. That's not to say that there won't be good or high-profile opportunities at the state level. It's just that in terms of quantity of organizations to target, there are more at the local level than the state level. It's no real surprise that law enforcement agencies already collect a great deal of information from patrol stops, tickets, incidents, crimes, etc. But often these data are stored in disparate systems, which means that the data just sits there. Housed in disparate systems makes retrieval difficult and interpretation even more so. Leveraging a cloud-based solution can help these agencies migrate their data into one central shared information repository. Once in a central system, the data can be analyzed and combined with things like GIS data to form predictive map overlays that forecast where crime hotspots are most likely. Many organizations have begun leveraging their own internal data to more effectively deploy police officers for patrols where there is a higher likelihood of crime to help prevent crime rather than react. This is a key area that can really help law enforcement be more strategic with their resources, not necessarily focusing on all areas equally, but narrowing in on those areas that need the most attention. Without the analysis of their own internal data, even identifying those areas could be tricky. There will always be a need for that human element to policing, but what the agencies need is a way to automate and speed up analysis. Many of these organizations have one or a handful of personnel manually analyzing the data to provide daily reports and recommendations. If you have a way to automate this process, this is a good opportunity for you to showcase your technology and how it can help them. Predictive policing is a fast-developing area of law enforcement because of the immense potential it has to dramatically reduce crime without large investments in personnel. Those stretched resources have forced many organizations to look to alternatives to make them more strategic in their deployment and utilization of data and assets. And this is even an area that the DOJ is looking to explore as well. Most of the activity to date has been in large metro areas typically hard hit by significant crime rates. Think Los Angeles, New York, and Chicago. These areas are changing the way they apply their resources by looking internally at their own historical data to influence where they deploy officers and assets. Taking the disparate sources of data they collect to identify trends and patterns and then overlaying that on a map can identify areas where crime is highest and deploy officers to proactively reduce crime, diffusing it before it happens in many cases. To deploy a program like this, a program that is smart and efficient, organizations need an agile infrastructure that can combine disparate data sources to enable analytics, forecast, and visualizations, and be capable of expanding and scaling as needed. Typically, these types of initiatives start as pilots, focusing on one region of a city, and if results are positive, they are expanded. The analysis is provided in regular reports that inform patrol operations through interactive visualizations. But visualizations are only effective if they get to the officers in the field. So they'll be looking to you for mobility technologies and apps that put them in constant communication with the analytics center and its personnel. And while there are numerous examples across the states, good examples are fusion centers and regional information sharing centers. They take multiple sources of data, come together, and to form predictive patterns to inform all local law enforcement. When targeting law enforcement, it's important to understand the pressure law enforcement and public safety personnel are under to make strides to reduce crime and shooting incidents, all while building a sense of community. This pressure will create an environment that is focused on results they hope can come quicker with the help of technology. And while typical prioritization of targets begins with focusing on the largest budgets, remember that most of the activity happens at the local level. So the best first step is to start with major city and county police and sheriff's departments and branch out from there. They not only have larger budgets, but with larger populations, they're more likely to be experiencing higher crime rates and thus motivated to find those alternative solutions. So while they may be motivated, there will be a reality check. There is only so much budget, and only so many officers available, so they need to find ways to stretch their finite resources. And as many organizations have recognized, technology provides an avenue for them to become more agile and responsive. However, through all of this, keep in mind that your technology solutions need to promote your ability to increase accountability and collaboration while reducing crime, whether that be through an improved network infrastructure or more automated data analysis. Remember to tie your technology to their mission. Thank you for joining us. This is just a snippet of the full webinar. If you'd like to access the entire webinar, please click on the link on the slide. If you have questions about this webinar or the sled market, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're always sharing insights on the sled market via our blog and LinkedIn.